Good morning, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Stalking News on Saturday the 3rd of December 2022. I can't quite believe December's here, whatever happened to November. But today is a special day because it's my dog's birthday. She is 5 today. Happy birthday, Nala. It's also day 3 of the Advent calendars. It's quite nice, I have to admit, having a little bit of chocolate first thing in the morning. Millbrook House is getting ready for Christmas. The tree is up, the decorations are being put around, and the front hall at the moment is full of raffle prizes, ready for the raffle which is being drawn on Wednesday the 7th at 11 a.m. Don't forget, on the same day, Wednesday the 7th of December, it is open house at Millbrook with mulled wine and mince pies for volunteers, members, staff, trustees, anybody who would like to pop along. 10:30 till 12:30 on Wednesday the 7th. Some of our other regular activities are also having their own Christmas party. So if you are regularly attending a group or would like to start joining a group, don't hesitate to give the office a call and we can give you any information you need. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Lisa, Sight for White.
This is Chris in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Positive engagement with Binstead landowner helps mitigate future flooding. Binstead resident and landowner Matt Legg has recently engaged in some heavy-duty land maintenance to help prevent future flooding. The spring-fed watercourse that passes through his land has been cleaned with banks cleared and leaf litter removed. All these factors can contribute to blockages of watercourses and culverts and pose a flood risk to nearby property and highways. Local ward member Councillor Ian Daw said, "Firstly, Matt Legg has done a phenomenal job, following an action plan that was agreed earlier in the year. The rules surrounding bird nesting season dictated the work could not be done before September, but what you see now is a staggering piece of clearance." Regular watercourse maintenance is paramount to ensure the flow of water is unhindered, and it is the responsibility of the landowner to carry out maintenance as and when it is needed. Guidance for those owning land that contains watercourses can be found on the Environment Agency website, which outlines riparian responsibility. In this case, the landowner also cleaned his boundary ditch, which aided the drainage of his land and should reduce the risk of flooding to adjoining properties that had occurred during the intense rainfall of late summer 2021. Regular watercourse and ditch maintenance is something that the Isle of Wight Council encourage, as it reduces the flood risk to nearby property and highways. Councillor Daw added, "We revisited the ditch this week to check performance and the work is exemplary. It is a Grade A, Class 1, gold-plated example of a local resident taking their riparian rights seriously and acting in everyone's best interests. It also helped us identify an area that is the council's responsibility to address, with the wheels being put in motion for that to happen at the earliest opportunity. This collaborative working approach is moving us closer to establishing the ultimate goal." A flood drop-in session is being held at Binstead Community Centre on Monday the 5th of December between 3 and 7 p.m. Local residents are welcome to attend and chat with all parties involved and have their say for the future on flood mitigation and prevention in Binstead.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. New Tourism Minister to pay a visit to the Isle of Wight in 2023. A new minister with a portfolio for tourism has pledged to visit the Isle of Wight in 2023 following a request from Island MP Bob Seely. Stuart Andrew MP, who is Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, accepted the invitation at one of his ministerial surgeries earlier this month. Bob said, "I'm keen that the Minister visits us to see what a fantastic visitor economy we have on the island. We have something very unique in terms of our tourism offer, and I want us to showcase this nationally." It's important that ministers who are making decisions in Westminster which shape our future are well informed, so I'm delighted he has agreed to visit in the new year. Responding to the news, Managing Director of Visit Isle of Wight, Will Miles, said, "The Isle of Wight is a strong tourism brand and is the destination of choice for over 2.4 million visitors each year, spending £350 million. The economic impact of tourism on the island is nearly £500 million, so I welcome Bob's discussions with the newly appointed Tourism Minister, Stuart Andrew. It's a highly competitive marketplace out there for holidays, short breaks and day visits, and 2023 and beyond will be even more competitive. We need to ensure that the island's tourism agenda is front and centre at the DCMS and with the Tourism Minister and his team. It would be great to welcome him to the island to show him how it is done, along with the amazing product that we have here all year round. It is hoped that the Minister will be able to visit the island in the spring.
Future looks bleak for popular Ride Splash Park and Canoe Lake, from Island Echo, read by Joyce. 6 months after Island Echo exclusively revealed that Ride Splash Park would not be open for the summer, the entire future of the children's play area appears to be in real jeopardy, as well as the adjoining Canoe Lake. It was back in May of this year that Waterside Community Trust, which ran the Isaac Hayward paddling pool and water play area, gave notice on its tenure due to the spiralling costs of keeping the park operational. The park normally opens between May and September, but this year, one of the hottest on record, it was closed for the entire summer, much to the disappointment of local families. The splash park was created in the early 200,000s in memory of the 5-year-old Isaac Hayward. Waterside Pool took over the running of the park in 2014, with the Waterside Community Trust then becoming responsible for it when the trust was formed in 2017. Now it has been confirmed that after 11 years, the Waterside Community Trust, WCT, has walked away from the play area altogether, with the reins handed back to the Isle of Wight Council, with fears growing the park may not open in 2023 either. What will happen to the park remains unclear. However, it is known that Ryde Town Council has formed a working party to explore the options for taking over the running. Alan Bridges, Ryde Town Council's Business and Development Manager, has said the council remains an outside yet interested party. As owner, it is up to the Isle of Wight Council to decide what happens now. The local authority has confirmed the lease has been surrendered, but has provided no further update. It's not just the splash park that is at risk though. This year, the Canoe Lake was missing its traditional swan pedalos, as too much sediment has built up within the lake, meaning there is not enough clearance. This, alongside the fact that the pathway around the Canoe Lake is no longer cleaned, has raised much concern. Last week, the Canoe Lake was dangerously overflowing due to the failure of a pump that takes water out to sea. Island Echo is told that the pump hadn't been maintained, and it was only after F.W. Marsh voluntarily inspected and cleaned out the pump that the water levels were able to drop.
This is Chris in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Plans for time and tide bell at Ventnor back before the Isle of Wight Council. Plans for a piece of noisy artwork to be installed on Ventnor Esplanade are being put before the Isle of Wight Council once again. The time and tide bell could be placed on Ventnor Esplanade, despite an application earlier this year being withdrawn due to issues raised about its location and health and safety. Now, in the new application, the bell has been moved further away from the steps of the Rotunda bandstand. The sculpture is made of marine bronze on a supporting structure of steel and would be one of 16 bells installed across the UK. They have been designed by international sculptor Marcus Vergette and would gently ring as the waves struck the bell. It is designed to ring at high tide and would be roughly a metre above the level of the beach. The sound of the bell has been recorded to be 70 decibels at other installations, which is said to blend in with the sound of breaking waves. Planning documents say the sound will quickly dissipate over distance, back to the seafront so to be barely discernible to residents above the background noise of the sea. Objections have been submitted by residents who feel it is too near their properties. One said it would cause noise pollution day and night, and the land is very unstable where it is proposed to be sited. Another said they felt a better site for the bell, if at all, would be further along the esplanade opposite the car park, where there are no residential properties.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. When are Royal Mail workers striking this December? Here's a full list. Here's a list of all the Royal Mail strikes that are taking place in December, causing chaos up and down the country in the run-up to Christmas. For many who work a lot and don't have time to get to the shops, ordering items from Amazon, eBay, or any other online retail sites is the way to go. But for people looking for convenient shopping this Christmas, you could face the prospect of your parcels or letters not arriving at all. On no fewer than 7 days in the month of December, the busiest time for Royal Mail deliveries, including the 23rd and 24th of December, workers will strike as a dispute with the company hierarchy about pay continues. Strikes will be held on the 1st, 9th, 11th, 14th, 15th, 23rd and 24th of December. Anyone ordering presents or sending Christmas cards in the lead up to Christmas Day is advised to do so as early as possible to avoid parcels and letters getting caught in the chaos. The delivery of items bought over the Black Friday and Cyber Monday period last weekend has already been delayed after workers again decided to strike on numerous dates last week, including on Black Friday itself. Royal Mail has said that it has made its best and final offer and has accused the union of holding Christmas to ransom. Unless an agreement is reached between Royal Mail and those from the Communications Workers Union and planned strikes are cancelled, disruption this Christmas is to be expected.
Big plans for Compton Beauty Spot revealed by National Trust from Island Echo, read by Joyce. The National Trust has announced plans to improve the visitor facilities at Compton Bay Car Park as part of a wider investment in the Compton landscape. This rather run-down looking car park, which is an incredibly popular tourist hotspot, will be given a makeover in 2023, which will include making the site more environmentally friendly whilst updating the area to meet the needs of visitors. Working with island-based designers, the plan is to change the car park layout, making it more accessible and safer. The Trust will use natural materials to help mark out car parking spaces and will improve entry and exit to the site, including improvements to visibility along Military Road. The plans include replacing the crumbling tarmac area with a new green space so that people can use it to enjoy clifftop views and safely access the food and beverage areas without the worry of moving traffic. As part of the investment, the car park will have an improved entry point and a mini roundabout will be created within the site to help with traffic flow. As well as changes to the layout, the charity also plans to improve visitor facilities with a brand new toilet block. This has been carefully designed in a modular fashion, allowing it to be relocated if and when cliff erosion requires it. Inside there will be 3 unisex cubicles, a larger accessible WC, including baby change facilities, and a changing places cubicle, which has the highest standards of accessibility for those who need it. Senior Programme Manager Ben Saville has said, "We hope the improved facilities will encourage visitors to not only enjoy the beauty of Compton Bay Beach, but also to explore the wildlife-rich Compton Downs area and to discover the work we are doing here to improve the land for nature. The improvements are planned to take place throughout next year, although this is dependent on planning approval. The works will be carried out with as little disruption to visitors as possible. The plan is to work in a phased manner to ensure the car park remains open throughout for everyone to access and enjoy, with full closure only required for a brief period to improve site access. Anyone who would like to share any thoughts on the project, either as a community group or individual, can email comptonbay@nationaltrust.org.uk.
This is Chris in Jersey reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight Council spent hundreds of thousands on floating bridge legal fees. The Isle of Wight Council has defended spending hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money on legal fees for the floating bridge settlement, only to keep the outcome a secret. Last month, the Isle of Wight Council announced it had reached the end of legal mediation with the boat builders and architects of the £3.2 million Floating Bridge 6. Since the vessel came into service in 2017, it has been plagued with breakdowns, engine failures and mechanical problems, which have led to a range of repairs and time out of service. To try and recoup some of the money it has lost, the Isle of Wight Council launched legal action against Venice Corlett Three Keys in Southampton, and Mainstay Marine Solutions. Now, a Freedom of Information request has revealed the authority spent £366,389 10p on legal fees since the action commenced in 2017. A breakdown of figures shows £258,934.50p was spent on external lawyers and £107,454.60p for disbursements, including technical expert witnesses cost and counsel fees. A council spokesperson said mediation processes are generally conducted on the basis each party in the dispute pays its own costs, but any settlement reached at mediation may include costs. The council said it was unable to comment upon the specific case. In the defence of spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on legal fees, however, the council said it was mindful and pleased that it had protected island residents' council tax, avoiding a long drawn-out, complicated and highly expensive High Court case with inherent litigation risk that would have been necessary had mediation been unsuccessful. A spokesperson said, the legal fees incurred in satisfactorily resolving the highly technical and complicated dispute have been part of the overall process since delivery of the vessel and were necessary to approach a satisfactory outcome, which has been achieved from a council perspective. The amount reached in the settlement is unknown, but the council said the terms of the settlement should remain confidential and no party would make any further statement. The use of a non-disclosure agreement in the settlement was justified by the council leader, Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, after she said it was the difference between deal or no deal, although it left a very bad taste in the mouth.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Rydes HSBC branch to close in New Year. Rydes HSBC is one of 114 branches confirmed to be closing in the new year. From April, dozens will shut as the bank tries to save money. The increased use of online banking and reduced footfall to high street banks is being blamed. Jackie Uhi, HSBC UK's Managing Director of UK Distribution, said, people are changing the way they bank and footfall in many branches is at an all-time low, with no signs of it returning. Banking remotely is becoming the norm for the vast majority of us. The decision to close a branch is never easy or taken lightly, especially if we are the last branch in an area, so we've invested heavily in our post-closure strategy, including providing free tablet devices to selected branch customers who do not already have a device to bank digitally, alongside one-to-one coaching to help them migrate to digital banking. Rydes branch is due to close on August the 22nd, 2023.
Ocean Hotel saga rumbles on as court date awaits. From Isle of Wight Radio. The saga surrounding Sandown's Ocean Hotel continues as its former owners prepare to head back to court in December in an ongoing legal battle with the Isle of Wight Council. Read by Joyce. A date is set for the start of next month. In February, the Isle of Wight Council issued a Section 215 order to force Durham-based Phoenix Commercial Property Development, PCPD, to tidy up the hotel on the Esplanade. The local authorities said the building's appearance significantly harmed the land around it and the town itself, and it set out 15 actions which PCPD was required to comply with by July the 11th. Including repairing fencing, removing greenery and cleaning the property. Within months, PCPD appealed, but magistrates later dismissed the case because they said the owners had failed to meet deadlines set by the court, as well as citing a lack of communication with the Isle of Wight Council. With the appeal dismissed, the countdown to clean the building up resumed, and magistrates ordered PCPD to pay £2,000 towards the council's legal costs. In recent weeks, a new appeal has got underway at Durham Crown Court, challenging the Isle of Wight magistrates' July decision and putting a hold on work to clean up the site. The derelict Ocean Hotel has been beset with problems, including a fire in May 2021, break-ins and vandalism. Built in 1899, the Ocean Hotel was one of the jewels along Sandown Esplanade. Before it was transformed by a West End theatrical impresario into the Ocean Hotel, it was the King's Head and welcomed guests including Charles Darwin and Lewis Carroll. People in Sandown made their feelings heard earlier this year by protesting outside one of the court hearings in Newport. In September, PCPD said it had sold the Ocean Hotel's freehold to a new owner.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society News for the week commencing 2nd of December. I'm John.
And I'm Jane.
Swimming is on every Monday at Medina Leisure Centre between 1:15 and 2:15. We have exclusive hire of the whole pool and the cost is only £5. Please call the office to book a space. There is no yoga now until after Christmas due to unforeseen circumstances. Please call the office for a restart date in January. Sorry for any inconvenience. Please remember, Monday evening is our annual Story Writing Competition Awards evening at the Riverside Centre. Doors opening 6:30, starting at 7 p.m. The evening is free with entertainment, raffle and tombola. Please come along and support this event.
On Tuesday, the God's Hill Coffee Morning will be at the Old Smithy between 10:30 and 12 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Yvonne and Linda, our fabulous volunteers, will be on hand to talk. Do not forget our Christmas raffle to be drawn on Wednesday at Millbrook House. If you have tickets, please remember to return them, or if you require more, we can easily take card payment over the phone. On Wednesday, everyone is welcome between 10:30 and 12:30 with festive food and drink where the grand raffle will be drawn. The office will be closing early on Wednesday at 2 p.m. for the staff to enjoy their Christmas meal.
This week's news items and sport. How could this happen? This is as exclusive by Zach Saunders. Family appalled as dementia patient dad left on busy road. An elderly man with dementia was found wandering along Newport's dual carriageway at 5 p.m. when he was believed to be in St Mary's Hospital. Now the furious daughter of 77-year-old Norman Kanan is asking how it happened. She has contacted the Isle of Wight NHS Trust's Chief Executive and the Care Quality Commission after initially being told it was due to a communication breakdown. A spokesperson for the Trust said it was committed to working with the family to establish what happened. Mr. Kanan, who has vascular dementia, was taken to hospital with a head injury following a fall outside his home last month. Police found Mr. Kanan without his glasses or walking stick, wearing a pair of shorts, cold and confused on the dual carriageway early in the morning on October 28th. His daughter Deborah was woken at 5:30 a.m. as police returned him to his West Wight home. Deborah told the county press she called St Mary's to ask why her father was not at the hospital and why she was not contacted to pick him up. She said a doctor told her no one realised her father had not been collected after being deemed medically fit for discharge. Not content with the feedback she received, Deborah was told to contact the Patient Advice and Liaison Service with her complaint, but refused. Instead, she opted to write directly to the Chief Executive to demand an investigation and a meeting with him and the Medical Director. A response 3 weeks later from a senior Isle of Wight NHS Trust manager explained the incident had been a, quote, communication breakdown, unquote, said Deborah. She continued, I think it's disgraceful. I am absolutely appalled. It's like they're going to sweep it under the rug. She has since requested the Care Quality Commission to investigate. Deborah said she told the NHS Trust, quote, think yourself lucky my dad is still alive. He could have been killed on the dual carriageway. You could have killed him. This is a daughter concerned for her father. You failed him. A Trust spokesperson said, we are sorry to hear of Mr. Kanan's experience. We have not yet received a formal complaint. However, we're committed to working with Mr. Kanan and his family to resolve any concerns. We will also be happy to work with the CQC if they raise any queries with us.
Abduction notice was ignored. A woman floated a child abduction warning notice and was caught with a young girl hiding in her kitchen. Ruby Owen of Fitzroy Street, Sandown, appeared before the Isle of Wight magistrates last Tuesday. The 26-year-old admitted 4 counts of detaining a child so as to keep her from a person having lawful control between October the 24th and November the 15th. Prosecutor Anne Smout told the court Owen had been issued with a child abduction warning notice in October and informed she should not have been in the company of a young girl who cannot be named for legal reasons. When the girl failed to return home on November 14th, she was reported missing, and police visited Owen's address. The girl was found hiding in the kitchen, and upon Owen's arrest, a mobile phone was seized. Ms. Smout said text messages and pictures revealed a number of additional dates where Owen had clearly been in the company of the girl. Owen told officers the pair had mutual friends. On November the 14th, Owen said the girl had been upset and she felt bad about turning her away. Ms. Smout said it was not a case of child abduction, but rather she had been helping the child away when told not to do so. Barry Arnott, defending, said the pair met a year ago and texted each other on a regular basis. On November the 14th, the girl went to Owen's address in a distressed state, and her only concern was to make sure she was okay. The case was adjourned to December the 20th for a pre-sentence report.
End of Road for Tiny Chillerton School by Laurie Little. Parents of the 10 children at the threatened Chillerton and Rookley Primary School say they are staying put, despite the only teacher leaving at the end of the term. Earlier this week, the Isle of Wight Council said it plans to transfer them to its sister school in the Stenbury Foundation at Godshill, but a number of parents are refusing to budge, citing their rights under Section 9 of the Education Act, which allows pupils to be educated in accordance with parents' wishes. The Isle of Wight Council has pledged to do all it can to support parents of pupils to find alternative education for their children. The school said it faced the very real prospect of reopening after the Christmas holidays without a qualified teacher to teach the remaining 10 pupils on site across 3 year groups. The council stressed it was not a school closure, and should the situation around pupil numbers and staffing change in the future, the decision would be reviewed. It is possible for pupils to remain on the roll of Chillerton and Rookley Primary, and the Federation will make sure suitable education is provided at its Godsill Primary site. If parents choose to take up this offer, free home-to-school transport will be provided by the council. Earlier in 2022, the 170-year-old rural school achieved good across all areas following an Ofsted inspection. This news came after the community successfully thwarted 2 council closure attempts. Closure plans are yet to be submitted, but the school land is protected by a covenant that states the land must be used for the purposes of a public elementary school and for no other purpose. One parent said, quote, "We absolutely must keep the school open. If it means staff training, promotions and moving around staff, then it needs to be done. I know my child will not be able to go to any other school as it will affect her mental health, and, to be honest, she shouldn't have to be pressured." A spokesperson for the Save Our School group said, quote, "It is for families to decide on where their children are educated, not council officers in Winchester. Parents at rural schools must be looking over their shoulders wondering who is next. We would like to understand exactly what the council has done before running out of options. We would recommend reinstating provision on site for starters."
Call for new law after dog killed. A petition has been launched after beloved family pet died from injuries suffered in an attack by another dog. Sandy's 83-year-old owner has been left devastated and traumatised, and her family says she's also facing a large bill from the vet. The vet's report said the dog had died from the attack injuries. A family member said, "It's devastated all of us. We reported it to the police. Because it's dog on dog, there's nothing they can do. Our family members got no reason to get out of bed anymore." The incident at Pan Estate has prompted a call for police officers to be allowed to take more action when dogs attack other dogs. Zoe French, who is behind a petition which has so far gathered more than 1,200 signatures, wrote, "Our animals deserve justice too. There should be something the law can do, prosecuting the owner of a dangerous dog or allowing police to investigate dangerous dog reports more seriously." 14-year-old Sandy was rescued as a 6-week-old puppy and was described as a best friend and her Newport owner's reason to get out of bed. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police said officers in its Newport Neighbourhoods policing team were aware of the incident and would be reviewing the circumstances as well as discussing with relevant partners what options are available moving forward. If your dog is attacked by another dog, Animal Charity, the PDSA, advises you to report the incident to the police and the dog warden. The PDSA says, where possible, collect details of the owner's contact details and insurance and a photo of the other dog, and note or photograph any injuries to your dog. Take your dog to the vet, even if your dog's injuries do not look serious.
Landslide victory for the Lib Dems by Louise Hill. It was fifth time lucky for a Liberal Democrat, Councillor Nick Stewart, as he secured a landslide victory in the Brystone, Calbourne and Shalfleet by-election to secure a seat on the Isle of Wight Council. Top of the poll last week, he gained more than 50% of the vote and finished nearly 290 votes ahead of Conservative candidate Carol Bryan, clinching the former Conservative stronghold. Councillor Stewart's share was more than the 4 other candidates in the running combined. The seat was previously held by the Conservatives since 2011, and Brystone itself has been blue since 2005 and was once the seat held by MP Bob Seeley. The by-election followed the resignation of a senior Tory, Steve Hastings. Speaking after his win, Councillor Stewart said he was very pleased. He said, "It has been a long time coming. I have stood 4 times previously unsuccessfully. The critical thing is to listen to voters, understand what the issues are, and put that forward with the values we hold." He added the campaign had been a lot of work by Isle of Wight Liberal Democrats. Councillor Stewart said the result was, at least in part, a message to both the government and the Isle of Wight Council. "Everybody I spoke to, including Conservatives, said, 'I used to vote X, but I don't know what to do now.' The problem is they have no faith in central government." Councillor Stewart also said County Hall's leading Alliance administration was trying hard and moving in the right direction, but it was felt not fast enough. He did not rule out the possibility of joining the alliance, but said it would be subject to a discussion with fellow Liberal Democrat Councillor Andrew Garrett. The full results for the Brystone, Calbourne and Shalfleet by-election are as follows. Doug Aldred, the Green Party, 153 votes. Carol Bryan, Local Conservatives, 239 votes. Gary Clark, Labour Party, 31 votes. Stephen J. Parks, Vectis Party, 36 votes. Nick Stewart, Liberal Democrat, 526 votes. The turnout was 37.75%.
Hotel bar manager sacked for drinking. A man was sacked as hotel bar manager after he couldn't stop drinking, and the manager feared he was bringing down the venue's reputation. Scott Francis, 40, of Avenue Road, Sandown, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last Friday to be sentenced. He had previously admitted using threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour with intent to cause fear of unlawful violence at Shanklin Hotel on October the 18th. Liz Miller, prosecuting, said Francis had been sacked because he consumed the alcohol and was often late for work. He was given a week to vacate his on-site accommodation, but kept drinking heavily, being a pest while wearing his uniform and having to be ushered back to his room by staff. Police were called when he refused to leave. Amy Hosel for Francis said he was an alcoholic engaged with inclusion and aisle talk for help. Presiding Magistrate Andre Osborne said, "I'm not sure why an alcoholic was working in a bar in the first place." Francis replied, "They had their reservations, put it that way." Francis was handed a 12-month community order with 10 rehabilitation days, alcohol treatment, an £80 fine, £85 costs and £114 surcharge.
Hat-trick of trophies by Alan Marriott. There was a hat-trick of wins for Borthwood Farms Dennis family at this year's Isle of Wight Gilton Market, with the winning beast staying local after being bought by Ride's Heron Restaurant. Mick Dennis won the championship and Gilton beast for a well-produced Limousin heifer. Mick also took the winning pair of sheep with a superb pair of Texel X, which sold to the judge Kelly Smith for £151 a head. The Dennis family's hat-trick was completed when young Grace took the single lamb class with a heavier lamb, again selling to the judge. Members of the farming community returned to Tapnell Farm near Freshwater for the market, thanks to the Turney Family Farms partnership. The island's annual Prime Stock Show had a super turnout of cattle and a good but small entry of sheep. After being gilded by Isle of Wight High Sheriff Kay Marriott, the beast was bought for the Heron Restaurant ride through the head chef's partnership with Island Foods. Island Foods also bought a number of cattle themselves, including the reserve champion and the exhibit of the highest placed young farmer, Leo Brett. The champion unhandled beast was a traditional breed Angus steer from young Ralph Rickard, which sold to another island wholesaler, Bill Tuffrey of WA Foods. Ralph also won the Mike Holiday Memorial Cup, presented in memory of Ralph's grandfather, with another Angus steer which again sold to Bill Tuffrey. The U class was taken by Matt Legg with his Suffolks, selling to Arran Meat and Livestock Company. Gilton Market chairman Matt Legg said it had been a great day with one of the best lineups we've seen for many years. He said it was particularly encouraging to see many of the younger exhibitors in the show classes. The Gilton Market is a long-standing Isle of Wight event, and it takes a lot of people to make it happen. Matt thanked patron, the High Sheriff, exhibitors, buyers, sponsors, Young Farmers Club, Southern Counties Auctioneers and the Turney family.
Lorries to deliver to store 24/7. A national supermarket store on the Isle of Wight is looking to permanently change the time its lorries can deliver goods to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sainsbury's on Foxes Road, Newport, has been having goods delivered to the store at all hours in the last 2 years, firstly due to the COVID pandemic and then followed by a 12-month trial run approved by the Isle of Wight Council. If permission is not given, the store will have to revert back to its original hours of delivery granted in 2011 by the end of January. This allows deliveries between 5:30am and 11:30pm Monday to Saturday and between 8am and 11pm on Sundays or bank holidays. Alder King Planning Consultants, on behalf of the supermarket giant, says no noise complaints have been received. Through previous planning applications, the store has added an acoustic roof and enclosure to the delivery yard, along with gates, which have reduced any potential impacts.
Sandown Sprint is roaring back by Alan Marriott. Motor racing is coming back to the Isle of Wight next year after a successful Sandown Sprint event this year. The Island Car Centre Sandown Sprint will return to Calver Parade over the weekend of March 25th and 26th, 2023. The first closed-road motor racing event held on the Isle of Wight was staged in April this year, and now an agreement has been reached to allow its return in 2023. Once again, overall spectator numbers will be limited, so motor racing fans are advised to book early. The cost of admission has been held at £10 per adult, with concessions. Tickets go on sale today, Friday, via the event website isleofwightspeedtrials.co.uk. The Sandown Sprint will involve 100 cars competing on a specially constructed circuit at Sandown's Calver Parade, with the start in Fort Street and finishing in Yaverland. The 2022 fastest lap time was set by experienced island driver Will Nichols, who will be returning next year with the hope to better his time. Will commented, "The Sprint is a fantastic opportunity to bring motor racing to the Isle of Wight. We had a great crowd to enjoy the first event, and I'm sure the competition will be just as close next year. I'll be entering a car again and looking forward to defending my title. Two-time World Rally champion Mickey Biassian entered the first Sandown sprint, courtesy of Chichester-based Rally Replay. Organisers are looking forward to announcing the headline drivers and cars for 2023 in the next few weeks.
Artwork is planned for Seafront. A piece of public artwork for Ventnor is coming back before the Isle of Wight Council. The Time and Tide bell could be placed on Ventnor Esplanade despite an application earlier this year being withdrawn due to issues raised about its location and health and safety. Now, in the new application, the bell has been moved further away from the steps of the Rotunda bandstand. The sculpture is made of marine bronze on a supporting structure of steel and would be one of 16 bells installed across the UK. They have been designed by international sculptor Margus Vergate and would gently ring as the waves struck the bell. It is designed to ring at high tide and would be roughly a metre above the level of the beach. The sound of the bell is said to blend in with the sound of breaking waves. Planning documents say the sound will quickly dissipate over distance back to the seafront so as to be barely discernible to residents above the background noise of the sea. Objections have been submitted by residents who feel it is still too near their properties.
Talented Artist's New 2023 Calendar by Zach Saunders. A talented islander with Down syndrome and hearing loss has released his new 2023 calendar, featuring his own paintings of birds, butterflies and squirrels. Kai Watson, 24, from Freshwater, has created 12 new paintings, adapted from photographs he captures while out in nature and walking his dog. During the first lockdown in 2020, Kai started taking photographs of birds and butterflies and asked his parents if he could have a go at painting one of his photos of a swan. Kai's mum, Kerry, taught him the basics of watercolour painting, and they have continued to learn techniques and style. Kerry said, "We were really surprised at how it turned out, and he just carried on getting better and better. He has grown in confidence so much and loves to hear what people have to say about his paintings." His favourite painting from the calendar is a swallowtail butterfly, which he travelled to Norfolk to find and photograph in June. This year, Kai's calendar is supporting island-based charity Ability Dogs for Young People, with a £1 donation from every copy sold. The family dog, Aggie, was trained and supported by the charity, and now that she is retired, Kai aims to give something back to them. Kai has also launched Kai Art on Etsy, with cards, prints, and this year's calendar for sale. He's recently been asked to do some commissions for friends and family, including one for St Mary's Hospital. Kerry added, "Supported employment for people with Down syndrome is really hard to get, unfortunately, so to start an enterprise for him is really rewarding, and he loves that he feels that he has a job." To purchase Kai's 2023 calendar, visit his Etsy site www.etsy.com/UK/shop/Kai's Art.
Disabled barn owl Peggy brings joy. Residents at Newport Care Home had a real treat when Peggy the barn owl visited them. Blackwater Mill residential home hosted Peggy and Keely Woodbury from Key's Little Birds, who saved the owl after she was born stuck to her shell, causing her to suffer a mini stroke. The residents were given the opportunity to stroke and hold Peggy, and the staff got the chance to interact with her too. Keely, who works at Blackwater Mill, taught Peggy how to walk and fly short distances with her disabled wing, and from not being expected to live, has now reached the age of 2. To begin with, the little owl could only walk backwards, but later learned how to walk forward. Peggy, who cannot be released into the wild due to her disabilities, spends the daytime outside in her aviary and sits on the end of Keely's bed and watches over her at night. Penny Tao, General Manager, said, "It is wonderful to be able to give our residents these special experiences. They really help them to live a full and happy life. We are very grateful to Keely. She has generously given up her own time to help our residents with their life enrichment."
Tributes as Rugby Club President dies. Sandown and Shanklin Hurricanes Rugby Club President Graham Thomas has died at the age of 67. Graham has been described as a legend of the club, serving as a player, coach, secretary, chairman, president and committee man. Both the first and second 15s held a minute's silence before their games on Saturday to remember Graham. After being brought up in the Coventry area, he moved to the Isle of Wight in the 1980s after meeting and marrying island woman Angela. When he moved here, he worked as a manager for BT and retired as senior field manager for BT Openreach. After starting his rugby career in the Midlands with the Kerrisley Club, his position on the pitch was inside centre and made the number 12 shirt his own throughout the 1980s. A series of knee injuries brought his playing career to a premature end. Dennis Hoyle, club stalwart, said, "When not involved with the club, Graham and Ange could always be found surrounded by family, particularly the grandkids, at their beach hut at Littlestairs. There have been numerous unfinished crosswords and Sudoku puzzles put down by Graham, whilst he took time to chat with countless friends who never pass without a chat. He was father to Daniel and Gareth, grandfather to Iris and Beatrice, brother and brother-in-law to Jack and Lynn, and father-in-law to Kate and Katie."
Teacher who abused girls jailed for 15 years. A depraved English teacher was handed a 15-year jail term for multiple serious sexual assaults on 2 children more than 22 years ago. David Gower of Warwick Street, Ryde, appeared via video link at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Wednesday. At a previous hearing, the 70-year-old admitted 5 charges of indecent assault on children under the age of 14 in Ryde between January the 1st, 2000 and December the 30th, 2001. There were 2 child victims. Gower also pleaded guilty to an additional charge of possessing a prohibited image of a child, also in Ryde, on November 3rd of last year. He further admitted possession of a knife in a public place and failing to comply with the notification requirements of the Sex Offenders Register on October the 3rd. The victims, who made complaints to the police as adults, were aged 8 and 12 at the time. Over a 2-year period, Gower regularly visited their home and used quizzes to gain their trust. He abused them predominantly while they were lying in their beds, dressed in their nightclothes. The court heard Gower wrote an apology letter to the parents more than 20 years ago, which Judge James Bromwich described as a confusing document. He said it involved elements of downplaying what he did, a lack of recognition for the damage caused, and tips on parenting. The letter was kept and provided to police. During a search of Gower's address, police found indecent images hidden among a pile of magazines. Prosecutor Roderick Blaine described them as concerning drawings by Gower depicting mostly female children in various states of undress, with a large hand touching them inappropriately. Only after the eldest child engaged in therapy and saw Gower in Ryde did she feel able to contact police. When Gower was arrested, he admitted the assaults. A victim impact statement revealed the full extent of the psychological damage caused. The eldest victim said she endured a lifetime of suffering, silently had her childhood robbed from her and spent 6 years masking her feelings with drugs and alcohol. She said she detested Ryde, her hometown, and a general distrust towards men stemmed from Gower's actions. For Gower, Oscar Vincent said his client admitted to more offending than that was complained about. He said he took full responsibility and had twice tried to take his own life.
Our trust has been abused by Zach Saunders. An appeal has been launched for a Shanklin family who lost nearly £35,000 after a builder completed no work on their family home and then declared bankruptcy. Patrick and Rhian Shelley wanted to increase the size of their property to allow their 2 young boys to have their own rooms. In March, the couple used savings and remortgaged their home to start paying for materials in good faith, following reassurances that work on their home would begin soon. No work has taken place on the house since the pair paid out £34,182 for materials, and the builder has since declared bankruptcy, leaving Pat and Rhian with little hope of recovering the money they lost. Rhian told the county press, "There seems to be a growing expectation from companies that there must be this mutual agreement about massive deposits, and there's no protection for customers. This is what happened to us. We put our trust in somebody that they are going to be able to deliver a service that hasn't then been able to come about due to bankruptcy. There is no protection for the consumer in terms of insurances and compensation once the person has gone bankrupt. No work and no materials have materialised, and it is very unlikely that we will be able to claim any of this money. A family friend has set up a GoFundMe page in the hopes Pat and Rhian may slowly get back into a position to be able to proceed with their renovations next year. Ben Colnut, a family friend who set up the GoFundMe, said, "Their trust and faith in humanity has been abused in the worst way. I cannot bear to see them suffer." The family does not wish to name the builder, stating that everyone is hurt in this situation and that they are sure the builder knows they have messed up. Rhian continued, "I don't want to humiliate them. I'm sure they're already feeling humiliated about the whole experience. And I'm really struggling ethically to do this, but I've lost nearly £40,000.
Man 59 jailed after waving knife around. A Ryde man has been jailed for 5.5 years for a knife crime. Andrew Soren, 59, admitted aggregated burglary and possession of a knife in Ryde on August the 13th and appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Tuesday for sentencing. Police had been called to Melville Street, Ryde, where Soren lived in Salvation Army accommodation, after members of the public saw him waving a distinctive copper-coloured knife around in the streets and shouting threats. Edward Elton, prosecuting, said Soren had drunk 24 cans of lager before getting into a dispute with the men he was drinking with. He ended up outside the building with a knife and then smashed a glass door with his hand to get back in, injuring himself. The other men tried to barricade themselves in, away from Soren. One man was left with a cut in his cheek, but he didn't pursue a complaint and insisted it was a self-inflicted injury. When police arrived, Soren had to be restrained by having his legs tied together to get him into the police van, and he continued to make threats including, "I'm going to get him, I'm going to stab him," and "he had it coming." Audrey Archer for Soren said Soren had been suffering since his high-achieving and highly regarded nephew took his own life. A probation report highlighted the shame, embarrassment and remorse Soren had felt since the knife incident, and his behaviour was purely down to drinking excessive alcohol that day. His last offence was 24 years ago. He has some mental health issues and was assessed for dangerousness but was found not to be classed as dangerous. There was low risk of reconviction but medium risk of future harm. Following the sentencing, DC Jess Hughes said, "We simply do not tolerate any form of violence in our communities and take a particularly robust stance against those who carry knives. I am pleased that justice has been delivered so swiftly and hope the outcome of this case acts as a stark reminder to people of the consequences of violent behaviour.
On the water, on the water, on the water, sailing Bembridge Illusions. While it was far from picnic weather, the absence of rain on Saturday meant there were plenty of boats out racing for this season's picnic hamper regatta. A total of 27 raced on Saturday and a further 24 on the Sunday, with Bruce Huber and Ed Peel bringing along a number of first-timers and introducing them to winter illusion racing at Bembridge. With so many boats to launch, a postponement was inevitable. If nothing else, it gave the early birds plenty of time to get into the groove. Mark Downer led round the windward marks ahead of Peel, Julia Bailey, Huber and David Russell-Jones. By the end of the second round, Downer had pulled well ahead of Peel, with Huber and Bailey ready to pounce. But an opportunity did not present itself, and there were no place changes during the third round. Despite extending the length of the line, the start of race 2 started with a general recall. The restart under flag U was much better controlled, though the front runners left little margin for error. Rounding the windward marks close together, it was always going to be a battle between Huber and Downer, with Peel and Rory Morrison ready to step in if one of them got it seriously wrong. Simon Birchenough found himself in the top quarter, as did newbie Wouter Steephook, sailing Hugh Doherty's boat, who finished in 7th place. The final race of the day, again starting under Flag U rules, was another example of how to start with inches to spare. Downer and Huber soon established themselves out in front again, but with the breeze varying between 12 and 17 knots, it was by no means a procession. On Sunday, the first race of the day saw Huber ahead of the pack, and after the second round he had established a substantial lead. In the third round, second place Rosie Gosling narrowed the gap slightly, and Peel came in third. In the second race, with a breeze fluctuating between 4 and 7 knots and regular 30-degree shifts, opportunities opened up for others to pick up podium places. Oliver Morgan was a clear second at the end of the first round, and Andy Christie found himself in with a chance, but Downer and Huber ended up taking the top 2 places. After shortening the course, the third and final race saw Steephout round the windward mark first. On the slow run down to the leeward gate, Peel developed a substantial lead ahead of Matt Solon and Downer. Another fine weekend of racing ended with Downer in the first place overall, with Huber in second, and last year's winner Peel in third.
Search for youth who attacked bus drivers. Police were called to an incident in Sandown on Friday after a youth attacked 2 bus drivers. At approximately 7:45 p.m, police say a youth carrying a can of beer and appearing intoxicated got on a double-decker bus on Avenue Road and demanded to go to Newport. Due to his aggressive behaviour, the 55-year-old male bus driver refused. The youth tried to attack the driver, who then had to remove him from the bus. When another double-decker bus pulled up, the driver, a 28-year-old woman, went to his assistance. They were both attacked and received minor injuries. The pair have been left shocked by the incident. The youth is described as aged around 16, tall and slim, with short fair hair, said a spokesperson for the force. He was wearing a dark hoodie and trousers. Work is ongoing to trace the youth, and we'd like to hear from anyone with any information about the incident on 101, quoting RMS number 44220479 251.
Islanders declare no religion. The number of islanders who have declared they follow no religion has sharply increased over the past decade, according to newly released 2021 census data. In 2011, 39,960 Isle of Wight residents said they follow no religion. In 2021, this rose to 61,572. Those declaring themselves as Christian has fallen from 83,671 to 67,005. There are fewer atheists, 29 now, compared to 68 in 2011. Pagans have increased from 340 to 385, and Wiccas from 40 to 61. There are 593 Muslims, 136 Jews, 499 Buddhists, and 257 Hindus. There are at least 90 ethnicities declared by Isle of Wight residents. Of the island's population, 97% of islanders identify as white, the top 5 rows in the table, and compared to 2011, this has fallen from 97.3%. Of just white British, first row in the table, in 2021, it equated to 93.8% of the island's population, compared to 94.8% in 2011.
5% council tax rise on the cards. A 5% council tax increase is likely for residents, but it will still not be enough for the council to cover a 22 million funding gap. Inflationary pressures continue to rise, and facing what it terms a lack of government funding, the Isle of Wight Council is trying to set its budget for the next year. Director of Finance Chris Ward explained earlier this week at the start of the financial year, the authority was only expected to find 2 million in savings. However, with a significantly different financial landscape, the cost pressures to the authority were a lot higher than first anticipated, with a 2.9 million COVID hangover relating to social care and leisure facilities, a high pay award for staff, and energy costs more than tripling. Although officers are at an early stage of preparing the budget, if nothing were to change, the authority would have to find 22 million. The unplanned pressures equate to 20 million, of which more than 9 million relates to adult social care packages and provider care fees. 2.1 million inflation in core contracts like the highways, PFI, and energy costs risen by 1.8 million. While costs have risen for placements of looked after children, demand has also increased by 30%, Mr Ward said, so another 1.4 million was needed. The government's autumn statement allows local authorities to increase council tax by 5%, with 2% going towards adult social care. However, on the island, a 1% increase in council tax equates to just over 900,000. Mr Ward said he thought the council had no other option but to increase the tax by the full 5%. The council expects to receive a 6 million increase in government funding towards adult social care, but the rest of government funding would remain the same. Mr Ward said, if inflation remains at its current level, it is actually a real-term cut to the funding of 10%. He said even with additional funding retention of business rates, there would still be a 10.4 million gap. Using the COVID relief fund set up a couple of years ago, it would take the gap down to 9 million, but there is still a significant way to go. Mr Ward said that while another 1 million is expected to come from government, the authority needs to continue pressing for an increase.
A big win for Ireland's Woodside Bay. A popular holiday park has been presented with the top regional tourism award by UK holiday giant Ho Seasons. Woodside Bay Lodge Retreat in Wootton Bridge was crowned Best Lodge Escape Destination in the south of England at the Staycation Specialists 16th Annual Awards. The awards are a celebration of the holiday parks, lodge resorts and boating locations in the company's UK portfolio that have achieved the highest scores in independent customer satisfaction surveys experiences throughout the 2022 season. Ian Hingley, General Manager at Woodside Bay Lodge Retreat, said, "This award means a great deal because it's voted for by the people who matter most to us, our guests. Our team have worked exceptionally hard over the last 12 months to make sure they have the best experience they can when they stay with us, and that's clearly paying off." Paul Evans, Vice President of Portfolio at Aways, the parent company of Ho Seasons, said, "This is a very well-deserved award. Delighting our guests has never been more important than it is right now, and that's why it is so important to recognise locations like Woodside Bay Lodge Retreat that have got their customer focus so right."
Alarm after woman on carriageway. A woman got drunk and refused to move from the centre reservation of Newport's dual carriageway late last night. Ria Lockwood, 19, of Ash Road, Newport, admitted being drunk and disorderly in public on November the 10th at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last Friday. Liz Miller, prosecuting, said police were flagged down by a concerned member of the public at 10:15 p.m. They were told someone was sitting in the centre of the dual carriageway. A friend of Lockwood said she was drunk and refusing to move. She moved when police asked, but declined all options offered of being taken home or to hospital, and said she liked sitting in the centre reservation. She tried to go back to the centre reservation, but for her own safety was told she couldn't and had to be restrained on the first lane of the carriageway by police. Representing herself, Lockwood said her mental health had not been in a good place. She said she was getting help, and this was confirmed by the probation service, who said she had ADHD and other issues and was well supported. Lockwood was fined £40 with £85 costs and a £16 surcharge.
Xmas Cracker gets winter series going. Whitelink White mountain cycle race team members completed in the Christmas Cracker the first round of the Brass Monkey XC Endurance Winter Series at Porridge Pot Hill in Hampshire. Alan and Ewan Cook, Nick Early, Joe Tracy and Andy Ward all competed. Winding through heath and pine woodland, the course comprised a testing single track, mixed in with swooping trails and stone fire roads. In the men's 2-hour category, Nick narrowly missed out on a podium spot, while Joe dug in to finish in 10th. Andy, riding in his first XC race, finished just outside of the top 10, while Ewan, racing in the junior men's category, finished in 6th. Ewan's father Alan, racing in the Grand Vet 3-hour race, came 9th.
New term in a new school for pupils. School will be out forever in Yarmouth come January. Pupils at Yarmouth Primary School are looking to make the move to Freshwater on the site of the former All Saints Primary School. The countdown is on until the new school building in Freshwater is ready, and it looks like pupils will be in their new school for the new year. Building work on the £4.5 million fit-for-purpose school on School Green Road is nearly finished, according to the Isle of Wight's Council Education Lead, Councillor Debbie Andre. Speaking at Cabinet last week, Councillor Andre said the work is 6 to 8 weeks ahead of schedule, and it is planned to hand the building over on December the 9th. Over the Christmas holidays, the school will be moved, so Yarmouth pupils will head to Freshwater for the start of the new January term. She said, Our island children deserve a fantastic environment to be taught in, and that is what we are giving them with this new school. New hard and soft play areas have been included, a library, technology suites, and a special educational needs resource base, as well as part of the new building using ragstone from the old building. The plans for the new school, which will accommodate 210 pupils, were viewed as controversial because it meant the closure of All Saints Primary School, with some pupils moving to Yarmouth. The school closure was done to combat the numbers of surplus school places in the West White area. According to the council, the former All Saints site, which has been a school for more than 150 years, was poorly arranged and suffered from subsidence, structural cracking, dry rot, and water ingress. It was argued the school was not suitable for modern-day primary education. Once the new building was complete, Yarmouth Primary would then move into the site. Permission was given for the building works 2 years ago, with demolition work starting in the summer of last year. The school and pupils moved out of All Saints and completed its final term in summer 2020. We now move on to the West White Memories and Nostalgia. A new book explores life on the island between 1884 and 1969 via the County Press. For nearly 440 years, the County Press has been at the centre of island life, recording the highs and lows of islanders' lives week after week, providing the generous and full accounts that only local newspapers are able to do. These County Press articles, seen at the time as nothing more than fleeting wallpaper, have left us with an unsurpassed archive, providing generous accounts of islanders' lives, as written by islanders. They document the extraordinary changes in the life of islanders during these years more faithfully and precisely than any history book. Everything from smuggling to the first Isle of Wight festivals and Edison's early phonographs on the island are covered. Island historian and author Alan Stroud has already produced 6 volumes of yesterday's papers. The previous books covered the same years as Alan's latest book, Yesterday's Papers, Late Edition. But when compiling these volumes, the author found there were always too many items and not enough space, so dozens of articles remain used. This latest compilation brings together those articles that were deemed too good to lie buried in the archives. Accompanying the text are more than 100 photographs and illustrations, many of which have never been seen before. Unless otherwise stated, the photographs all come from the author's collection.
Alan said, "The County Press throughout the last century was the totem pole around which the island sat every week. Unlike today, it had no lasting or serious competition. There was no internet and no digital newspapers to worry them. The County Press was unassailable, seeing off any newcomers that dared to raise their head over the years. It ruled the roost and was the undisputed fount of all local knowledge. If the County Press claimed a fact was so, then that was the end of the matter. It was so. Today, the world of provincial newspapers has changed beyond measure. No longer do editors have staff in abundance and teams of journalists at their beck and call to personally attend and report on all manner of local stories. Unfortunately, this is now the way of the world for most local newspapers. The County Press is not alone in that. The County Press Archive is the largest source of island history in private hands, yet still remains a largely untapped resource. In an attempt to redress the balance a little, here are more stories of island life and local history presented in a detail unmatched by any other historical resource, and showing that although times may change, human nature doesn't. Alan Stroud's latest book is on sale now in local bookshops, priced at £13.95, or signed copies are available on eBay with £1 postage and packing by searching for Yesterday's Papers Late Edition.
This week's My View is by the columnist Malcolm Mime. Apology was the peak of wokeism. Last October, I saw the comedian David Baddiel at Shanklin Theatre and thoroughly enjoyed his very funny show. A couple of weeks ago, Mr. Baddiel brought me further pleasure, along with his friends Frank Skinner and Ian Brodie, by releasing a new version of Three Lions with the tagline, "It's coming home for Christmas." The new lyrics are both witty and clever, and who knows, maybe football really is coming home for Christmas. But a couple of days after the release of the new single, Baddiel did something that left me shaking my head in utter disbelief. Back in the mid-1990s, Baddiel and Skinner used to present a TV programme called Fantasy Football League, and in the programme they would often take the mickey out of footballers. One of the footballers they picked on was Nottingham Forest's Jason Lee, who sported a ridiculous haircut that Baddiel and Skinner likened to a pineapple. So Baddiel dressed up as Lee and had a pineapple on his head. It was nothing more than silly humour. As part of the dressing up, Baddiel applied blackface makeup. Without the makeup, he wouldn't have resembled Jason Lee, and the joke would have been lost. Roll on 25 years, and David Baddiel has now decided that what he did back in the 1990s was racist. And a couple of weeks ago, he met up with Jason Lee to apologise to him for being racist towards him. But here is the problem. David Baddiel isn't a racist in any shape or form, and he wasn't racist towards Jason Lee. So to apologise for being a racist when he is actually one of the most woke lefties you are ever likely to come across is just utter nonsense. How on earth have we reached a point where those who are appalled by racism are actually calling themselves racists? In recent years, the Little Britain actors David Walliams and Matt Lucas have also apologised for blackening up, but they too are lefties who deploy racism. This has all come about because the act of blackening up is now seen by some as being a racist act. But why should it be seen as racist if there is no racist intent? And who is it that has decided to speak for all black people to say that blackening up is a racist act? Like with many things in life, there should be context. But in today's cancel culture society, context seems to no longer apply. And if people shout loudly enough, they get things shut down. These apologies for racism by the non-racist lefty comedians must surely be the peak of wokeism, or can this nonsense go even further? The non-woke comedian, Ricky Gervais, is convinced that this current woke generation will be seen as not being woke enough by the next generation, and that the wokes of today will themselves be the recipients of cancel culture in 10 years' time. The world has truly gone mad.
Anyway, enough about the fools on the left. Let me balance things up by mocking the fools on the right. Last week there was a council by-election for the ward of Brystone, Calbourne and Shalfleet, and although this rural outpost might not be seen by many as a political hotbed, it actually serves as a very good marker of the general mood of voters as a whole. The Conservatives had held this ward since 2001, and it was in fact the seat held by Bob Seeley before he became an MP. The result last week was an emphatic win for the Liberal Democrat Nick Stewart, who received more than double the number of votes of the Tory candidate Carol Bryan. Mr. Stewart was absolutely thrashed at the previous by-election, and neither he nor his party have done anything of note since the previous election to up their political game. So this result is all about how poorly the Conservative Party are now received by the Isle of Wight electorate. Nationally, the Tories are a laughingstock, and here on the island they are faring no better. If Bob Seeley thinks that providing a marine crane and some old railway carriages is going to be enough to get him re-elected at the next general election, he's got another think coming. Only that promised island deal can save him now.
Here are a few articles on what's on. Churches open up for warmth. Isle of Wight churches are opening up to provide food, company and warmth to islanders affected by the rising cost of living. In Sandown, Christchurch on Broadway is working with Sandown Town Council to provide a warm space between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Mondays. Vicar, the Reverend Mark Williams, said, "We recognise the rise in the cost of living and the pressures on families and individuals, and are grateful for the support of a town council to provide a warm space for those that need it." In Carisbrooke, St Mary's Church Hall is open between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. Newport Minster is offering support at Newport Parish Centre from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Fridays. Free refreshments are available at both Carisbrooke and Newport. St John's Church Ryde is opening on Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Hot soup and rolls and hot drinks are available.
Join us for a magical German Christmas market. That's this Saturday, 3rd of December, between 12 o'clock and 7 o'clock at 7 p.m. at 4 Granville House, Western Road, Cowes, PO 31 7JE. Entrance is free. There you can experience the authentic tastes and aromas of Christmas in Germany, with glue wine, that's mulled wine with a kick, hot chocolate with or without brandy, coffees, teas, soft drinks, curry bratwurst, sauerkraut, Rieberkuchen, potato pancakes, and a large variety of traditional Christmas bakes, also Christmas gifts and much more.
The Ventnor Theatre Group are presenting a rock nativity. This is the story of the nativity but with rock music. It has Christmas carols for all to sing along to. It will put you in the Christmas mood. It's a fun-loving show for all the family. Tickets are £15 and it's being held on Wednesday the 7th of December at 19:30 and Thursday the 8th of December at 19:30. Pantomime is coming to Shanklin Theatre. Cinderella, the most charming of rags to riches tales, is back. It's voted the nation's favourite pantomime in 2021, and Shanklin Theatre invite everyone to enjoy the story of Cinder's finding the man of her dreams while her horrible sisters do everything they can to stop her. Tickets for adults are £19.50, children £15, and party rates are available. The pantomime is running from Saturday the 17th of December to January the 1st.
Jack and the Beanstalk will be performed at the Medina Theatre. It's for grown-ups only. Have you ever wondered what pantomime would be like without the kids? Now's your chance to find out. These special performances will not be for the faint-hearted. It's panto as you've never seen it before. The hilarious production is packed to the brim, full of innuendo, hilarious comedy routines, parodies of well-known songs and audience participation, creating a performance that's sure to be hilarious, cheeky, saucy and, sometimes, just a little bit naughty. Oh, okay, very naughty. Will Jack reveal his giant chopper to help the princess? Will Fairy Daffodil show off her magic garden? How big can Dame Trot's beanstalk grow? There's only one way to find out, boys and girls. These performances, suitable for those aged 16 plus, are likely to sell out extremely quickly, so book now to avoid disappointment. Please note that our grown-ups only performances of Jack and the Beanstalk contain strong language, adult themes, and are not suitable for the easily offended. Performances are on Friday the 23rd and Tuesday 27th of December at 7 p.m. Tickets are £21.
We have one or two letters for you now. Thank you, says new councillor. A few weeks ago, the former councillor for the ward resigned from Brystone, Calbourne and Shalfleet from the Conservative Party, his island seat and the island. And at short notice in the last few weeks, 5 people have put themselves forward to represent the ward. A long drawn-out job application process with thousands of people on the selection panel. As the eventual winner and now councillor, I would like to say thank you to the people on that selection who listened to us on the doorstep, read our papers and turned out to vote on a wet November day. I would also like to say thank you to the other candidates who worked hard to present themselves and their ideas to the public. Finally, thank you to the council staff who managed the election and count in a thorough and efficient manner. The democratic process is tiring, frustrating and sometimes chaotic, but is the best way to find people to look after our country. And when we get it wrong, the public can ruthlessly remove us. The people who helped directly get my personal thanks, and if anyone would like to join them or the Liberal Democrats, call me. As a new councillor, I was in action the next morning and I will continue to work for the interests of the people in my ward and to play my part in the Isle of Wight Council chambers. My contact details are freely available and I want to hear from residents, as if an issue is important to them, I will listen. Nick Stewart, new Isle of Wight councillor for Bristone, Calbourne and Shelfleet.
Lions led by donkeys. Dear editor, I know it is unfashionable to criticise St Mary's or the NHS, but my husband was recently an inpatient for a serious operation. The nurses were lovely, but it was clear that the management left a great deal to be desired. The staff on the ward were seriously overworked and didn't have time to properly care for him. I'm not sure what he would have had to eat if I hadn't gone in every day, as I had to feed him because he couldn't feed himself. To say they were lions led by donkeys would be an insult to donkeys. What was the island's top brass thinking? Handing 10 million, given to the Isle of Wight NHS by the government, over to Portsmouth was an absolute travesty. I wonder if when Portsmouth gets its next lump sum they'll be thinking of the island when they decide how to spend it. I think we all know the answer to that one. Name and address supplied.
Thank you for listening and goodbye.
Thank you, that's goodbye from John.
BBC In Touch programme follows and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Now, here's a message I bet you've heard quite often recently.
Subscribe now on BBC Sounds, and you can also check out every single episode in video format on BBC iPlayer, the Joe Wicks podcast for BBC Radio 4.
But just how easy is it for all BBC radio listeners to take this advice? More on that towards the end of the programme. But first, we've had a very gratifying response to our item last week on how feasible it is to prepare for the loss of your sight, however tactlessly people are sometimes given the news. Listeners were particularly impressed with the honesty and practicality with which our contributors talked about the issue.
The doctor, nurse and art therapist were so honest and articulate, I could not tear my attention away from all that they shared. Life is unfair, but your guests weren't lost in self-pity. Quite the opposite, with their combined efforts to find ways to enable them to continue to enjoy their lives. I'm just hoping that the woman who was so recently diagnosed will receive the services that she needs, so that she too can take confident steps toward a rewarding life.
I feel particular empathy for Pauline, as our circumstances seem similar. I too live alone, and although I have friends, I'm childless and an only child of only children, long since dead.
Those emails there, among many, were from Elizabeth Balsam and Carrie Riley. But there was one reservation, and listener Martin Packer summed it up.
As someone whose sight is deteriorating, I listened to the item with great interest. However, all I learnt was that yes, perhaps it is possible to prepare for sight loss. But I didn't learn what preparation might consist of. For example, skills were mentioned. What skills? I think someone mentioned modifications to the kitchen. What modifications? All in all, by the end of the programme, I was frustrated. Another programme, perhaps?
Well, Martin, I'm sure you appreciate that just under 20 minutes isn't long enough to run a full-scale rehab course. Nonetheless, we thought you had a point. So today we've invited Simon Labbett. He is a rehab worker himself and he chairs the Rehab Workers Professional Network to give us a few clues about the practicalities. Simon, first of all, in a nutshell, what are newly blind or severely sight impaired people entitled to? You know, what are their rights?
Well, to start off with, their first right is the right to an assessment. And assessment is just a posh word for a proper conversation where the individual says what they think they need and to find out what services are available. It should be led by the person who's making the inquiry. So someone like me would try and find out what you're really concerned about, what your strengths are, what you'd like to be able to do better or to continue doing, and we take it from there.
OK, so let's just take the example that Martin in his email mentioned, which was the kitchen. So, I mean, regular listeners to this programme will know that many visually impaired people and totally blind people cook confidently and competently. But where do you start to teach someone trying to do it from scratch?
Yes, so let's make the working assumption that the person's already been cooking to some extent. So you're starting in their kitchen. I'd say to Martin, if I were working with him, show me what your kitchen's like. I'd try and work out whether it needs more lighting. Are there things that need to be changed about the environment to make it safer? You know, how to keep your fingers from being cut by a knife when you're chopping might be a consideration. It depends what particular aspect of that you're not too confident about and how you can adapt to that.
And there is quite a lot of adapted equipment around, isn't there?
There's lots of adaptive equipment. There's some very specific things, the classic liquid level indicator to tell you how far the water is up in the cup. Sticky bump-ons you put onto a cooker to let you know how far the dial's turned. But it may be just a question of improving the lighting or adapting the layout that you've got in front of you. You know, if you're prone to knocking a pan over, it might be better to use the back part of the hob than the front part of the hob.
OK, let's leave the kitchen. I mean, you could spend several hours doing this, but we haven't got several hours. In terms of having the confidence to move around, presumably you'd start inside the home, really?
Yes. I mean, a lot of people say already I can move around the home. I'm confident about that. Once I get out the front door, that's a different matter. A lot of, what they call mobility, orientation and mobility training, or walking practice, as someone I'm working with calls it. Yeah. What is walking practice about is confidence building. What is it that's making you nervous? Is it the crossing of the road? Is it the fact that you can't see the curb edge? And that's where you might focus the training.
A lot of people will, because it gets a lot of publicity, will think about the dog. That's presumably just one of the options, yeah?
It is one of the options, and we would always discuss that. But for people with very low vision, it's often long cane training, and long canes come with, for some people, an element of stigma, but some people find them incredibly liberating. And I suppose part of the discussion is, if you feel that a cane would help, how you introduce that. But it's also, if you've got some residual vision, it's using the vision you've got. But it might be that having a cane helps you use the vision you've got.
There's obviously a huge range also of technology. Just tell us a bit about the range of equipment now available, stuff to help you read, to scan print, to get online radio stations.
Yes.
I'm just wondering how you deal with that, because that too must seem pretty daunting to start with.
It can be very daunting. I think the starting point, again, is where someone's already at. If they already use a smartphone, we would start by looking at the accessibilities on a smartphone or on an iPad or whatever it is. There are some quick fix gadgets which are quite expensive, things that will read a whole piece of text to you in one fell swoop. But they often can be quite expensive. But with an app on a phone, there may be a much cheaper way of doing that. The barrier is usually the befuddlement. Vision and IT don't always go well together. So starting slowly with some basic applications on an ordinary mainstream phone is the starting point.
Right. Now, people will be hearing a lot, though. Whatever we say about all these exciting things that are available, they'll be hearing about the problems of funding social care. Bluntly, how likely are you to get these services that you've talked about?
There should be a vision rehabilitation specialist in every local authority area in the country. The way, I suppose, to really push it is to be assertive about what you want. But when you are saying, well, I'd like an assessment, be very clear why you want an assessment, what you're having difficulty with. I suppose it's fair to say that social services are, by necessity, reactive. So they're not going to come out calling on your door So you have to phrase it in a way that says, if I can't see well, these are the consequences of that. I am at risk of X, Y, and Z. It seems a very negative way of phrasing it, but it's more likely to get a response that way. And having clarity in your mind what it is you want to achieve.
And who is the person, Simon? Because the trouble is, social services is a word. For a lot of people, they'll never have dealt with social services. They'll never have needed to. Who actually is it that you bully?
The person you are assertive with, let's say that, would be the access point at adult social care, usually. Sometimes the voluntary sector have the contract and you can talk straight to the voluntary sector organisation.
That's your local organisation for the blind, basically.
Yeah, and that's a lot simpler. But in the majority of places, that's not the case. So you're looking up adult social care, and the person you're talking to will have to have a very wide range of knowledge of lots of health conditions. So you need to be saying, I'm losing my vision, I need this help, I would like help from the sensory needs team or from the vision rehabilitation team. And if they're not sure, they would need to go away and find out if they've got one of those. So
there's a lot that's available if you can get to it.
If you can get to it and you're willing to push at it, and don't be fobbed off. Say, I'm going to call back in 4 or 5 weeks if I've not heard from you and see how far we've got. How's that sound?
4 or 5 days might be better.
Oh, absolutely.
Simon Lavett, thank you very much indeed. Now, with the BBC celebrating its centenary this year, it's a good time perhaps to remind ourselves that the arrival of radio 100 years ago was almost certainly the biggest step ever to put visually impaired people on equal terms when it came to getting information about news, culture, entertainment, far more significant than Braille, which many people can't master. But is that equality in danger for some when they hear adverts like these?
This is Sneakonomics. Subscribe at BBC Sounds.
Expect the unexpected. Woman's Hour. Listen on BBC Sounds.
That's One Dish with me, Andy Oliver. Listen now on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds, a digital service which visually impaired people who have smartphone and app skills can use. But Ray G is one of those who's concerned about the rest, who can't.
Many blind internet radio listeners, myself included, have been getting messages on our specialist players that the streams we are using will not be available after mid-2023. This is very concerning, as players like those supplied by Humanware and other specialist manufacturers are very likely to be unable to access the streams provided via BBC Sounds the BBC wants us to use when the present streams stop working. Accessing BBC Sounds does involve setting up an account on a smartphone or tablet, but many blind listeners are not in a position to use the BBC Sounds app to do this. Increasingly too, the BBC is driving listeners to BBC Sounds, which simply is not accessible to so many blind people, especially for using catch-up services. Should not the BBC be our BBC, as well as those able to use smartphones?
Well, another of our listeners who got the message that Ray referred to is Dennis Huckle, and he joins us now. Dennis, first of all, just explain how you have been accessing BBC Sounds up to now, on what devices?
Well, I can access BBC Sounds via a PC, but the point that Ray makes is excellent because I use a very small device which is called the Victor Reader. This is produced by Humanware, and what it enables you to do in one tiny box you can carry around with you is play Daisy talking books, play MP3 audio files, connect to many radio stations, not just the BBC, but the BBC connection is extremely important. And I think that the BBC denying us access via these specialist devices is extremely concerning.
The real point about it is you're saying this is actually simpler for those people who struggle with smartphones and tablets.
Oh, yes, it certainly is, Peter. All you do, you connect an SD card to it. You can then easily set up your Wi-Fi connection for radio. Everything you do on the Victor Reader is spoken.
OK, and it was this message that you heard on your Victor Reader the other day.
We are making changes to the way BBC live streams are distributed via third-party services and platforms, and the BBC stream you are currently listening to will stop working by mid-2023.
So, Dennis, you've explained that you can cope without this, but what is your concern really about this?
Well, it is that I do use a specialist device at home, and also when I travel, and I paid £300 odd for an excellent device, and the BBC are denying me use on that device. But also, many people will find this easier to use than a smartphone with a touch screen, and there are many people, sadly, who aren't able to use computers, and they should be helped as much as possible.
Well, we have for some time now been inviting someone from the BBC onto In Touch to talk about this and other related issues. But again, we've been told that no one is available to join us, but this is what they told us in a statement.
The BBC uses several streaming technologies to deliver BBC Sounds. If you are hearing a message informing of this change, you are listening using Shoutcast. We're making these changes because Shoutcast is an older streaming technology and many connected radio devices in the UK no longer use it for BBC streams. We informed manufacturers and other service providers of these changes in May and provided instructions for them to update the devices to ensure listeners receive our supported streams. One of those we informed of the changes was the RNIB, which is responsible for the distribution of the humanware devices mentioned in your listeners' messages. If your listeners are using a device provided by the RNIB, they should get in touch with them, as they'll be able to ensure the updates are made. If they're using a different device not provided by the RNIB and are still hearing the message, they should get in touch with the manufacturer.
Well, we've also been in touch with Humanware. They say, at this current time, there are no planned software updates on the Stream 2, that's the device that Dennis has. They say the platform will continue supporting all radio stations that stay on the streaming service we use. So, there still seems quite a lot to unpick here. So we've gone to the British Wireless for the Blind Fund, which for some time now has done much more than simply provide radios to blind people and now attempt to give people help with a range of technology as it develops. David Beard is the Technology Project Manager at BWBF. David, can you just spell out in simple lay terms what the problem is here?
Ultimately, the internet is outgrowing some of these devices and everything is just moving on. And we recognise that people have, put their hand in their own pocket and pulled their own money out, as obviously Dennis referred to. But ultimately, these devices can't live forever. They are static when they're made, and the internet continues on after them.
Can I ask you a specific question? I'm looking for possible solutions for people because they're being urged to use BBC Sounds and then finding that they can't. What about smart speakers, for instance, such as Amazon and Google? Will they not do this job?
There is a BBC Sounds skill, but ultimately that will require, obviously, sign in again. And it potentially will never provide the full range of content that is provided through obviously the app and obviously through the standard PC online access.
Because I think, for example, you can only get relatively recent programmes. You can't go, back into the mists of time with the smart speakers.
That's correct. The full catalogue of information isn't, and audio content isn't available.
So, David, whose job is it to solve this problem? People like Dennis and Ray are being told to go to the manufacturers or the RNIB, but could the BBC have anticipated this problem?
I believe the BBC have been talking about this problem for many years, Peter. I know that they first came to us as an organisation potentially 4 or 5 years ago, and they were looking at a number of people using these devices. And like I say, I just feel that there is potential for much more work to be done by the bigger tech companies to come and help the organisations to make smartphones and other applications more accessible to these individuals.
Can I just ask you, you've been working in the field of radio for the organisation for decades now. Do you have any statistics about how many blind and partially sighted people depend on radio? And do you have an idea of how many people won't at this stage be able to use smartphones and other related equipment?
As an organisation, we currently support around about 40,000 people with radio and with digital app services at the British Wireless for the Blind Fund here. And recently, through the end of one of our services, we have recognised that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals who are in the same place as Dennis and Ray are, in that they are unable to make that transition, obviously, to smart devices, smartphones, iPads and the like.
Let me just go back finally to Dennis. I mean, as we know, Dennis and Ray are perhaps in a better place than quite a lot of people because they have good technical skills. Can I ask you, Dennis, what are you going to do about this?
I've also contacted DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, because I think they have a responsibility over the BBC. But I think, really, the problem that the BBC and the RNIB would have is that often these products are manufactured abroad. It's a shame that there's not a company over here that could look at this issue and say, hang on, we may be able to do something here, but in the end, it's going to cost the user money. I think it's always the case that these specialist devices are often behind technology, as David has rightly said. And this, I think, is the issue.
We're going to have to leave it there. Dennis Huckle, David Beard, thank you both very much indeed. Well, a lot to think about there. Your views, please. I'm sure you'll have some. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338 or go to our website, bbc.co.uk/in touch. That's it from me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers John Cole and Simon Highfield. Goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news week commencing 5th of December. For the Newport area, 29 to 29A High Street, 11 St James's Street, Lugley Street, Santander, 26 St James's Street, Cherry Godfrey, 32 High Street, and Newport Congregational Church, Pyle Street.
Scaffolding for the Ryde area, Jack's, 75 Union Street, 7 Cross Street, 51 to 52 High Street, 71 High Street. For skips in the Ryde area, 46 George Street, Belmont, Stane Road, Seaview, Domick, Fairy Road, Seaview, The Cottage, Upper Green Road, St Helens.
Scaffolding and skips in the Sandown area, 59 High Street. In the Freshwater area, the Red Cross, School Green Road. And in the Ventnor area, 23 West Street and 29 West Street.
In the Cowes area, 1 Bars Hill, and Shanklin skips can be found at 22 Spring Gardens.